Previously, Nier would regenerate Love's redemption stocks, the resource that she needs to use in order to command death, at a fixed rate. The rate was pretty slow before, as this rework was namely designed to make sure that Nier actually had some marked weaknesses, and the intended weakness for the character was when she didn't have access to death, then she was basically a throw, triple, strike dispensing machine without really any other resource to it. But I do feel like Arc Sys and Psy games went a little overboard with how long of a cooldown death would go on and how long it would take for Nier to recover those stocks. In the new patch, they've buffed this regeneration by making it so that while it does start off a little slower, it does accelerate after some time has passed. As you can see, it still takes a while to kick in, but it does eventually get up there at a certain point. By my crude counting, it seems like we've shaved off about 4 seconds in total regeneration time to go from 0 Love's redemption stocks up to 13 stocks. I got some footage playing here just for the side-by-side comparison, so you should be able to get a better sense of it there. Previously, if death was active and you went to throw the opponent and they tech that throw, then death would be put onto cooldown. As you might imagine, this was pretty disastrous. Death is the core of Nier's kit, and Strike Throw is the core mix-up of the game. If you were low on Love's redemption stocks, then you were risking putting your main kit on cooldown for like 8, 9, 10 seconds in some cases, just to get like 2,000 damage onto the opponent. In a game where you can do delayed button mashing to throw tech the throws, that was kind of an option that Nier players would not recommend. The risk-reward for this option was skewed against Nier when death was active. Now, if you go for a throw with Nier and death is out and the opponent techs it, death is no longer put on cooldown. Instead, death remains active and on standby. I can't begin to tell you just what a huge difference this makes. Now, Nier no longer has to worry about going for a throw when she's low on Love's redemption stocks and all of a sudden putting her entire kit on cooldown. Now she's actually able to properly and safely represent strike throw options, and then because death remains active, she's able to use options like Misfortune to RPS in those situations. This is massive, massive buff for Nier's pressure game. Previously, Nier's FAR M was 10 frame startup. The startup has been reduced by a single frame, so now it's 9 frame startup. This basically means that she's going to be able to use this more effectively as a poke. She's going to be able to use it in some frame trap sequences that she couldn't use it before. There might be a new combo route here or there, or some easier time linking into some combo routes using this normal than she did before. There's just a lot of small implications to this normal. Suffice it to say, it's buffed. The amount of Love's redemption stock that 5U Uncharged will generate on hit has been increased. I have a very rudimentary way of comparing it here, so let's just go ahead and get started. Previously, it took us about 8 5Us in order to fully regenerate from 0 Love's redemption, along with the passive generation. Now for a look at the current patch. You only need about 7 before you fully regenerate here. So it's a very marginal buff, but every little bit will help Nier in these circumstances. Previously, if you used this 5U and the opponent blocked it, you didn't get any regeneration effect. This basically meant that while this could be a safe option to end your pressure with, you really weren't incentivized to do so. Now, her 5U is going to regenerate your Love's redemption stock on block, and it's the same amount as if it hit the opponent. This is, again, a very nice buff. Even if Nier is at disadvantage and she's trying to just pressure the opponent to regain death, she can go ahead and safely end her string like this in order to try and get herself back in the game faster. The same was true for her charged 5U on block. Previously, you didn't regenerate any Love's redemption stocks. And now you do. You'll also note that it's the increased amount that the charge 5U will give you as if it hit. So there's even more incentive for Nier to try and sneak this in earlier in her block strings to potentially catch the opponent just, asleep at the wheel and regenerate a little bit more of death. Still a little bit risky though, but the fact that Nier even has this to begin with is kind of nice. There might even exist some sort of Oki situations where you're able to catch the opponent in midair with this option and be plus on block. I'm just theory crafting here. Maybe I'm full of it. Her JU, when she doesn't have death, also called pain, has the same treatment that her uncharged 5U does, where it generates more Love's Redemption stock on hit, and it now also will generate it on block. And now for checking its behavior in the current patch. The fact that this will now generate Love's Redemption on block is massive, I think, for Nier, because now you can use this as a safe jump option for her while you're generating death faster than you were before. Honestly, with these changes, Nier finally has reasons to use these tools just in her simple pressure strings to get death off cooldown faster. It's nice to see that Cygames and Arxis are giving her ways to have quicker access to death, not just by snowballing and hitting the opponent, because honestly, when you don't have death, you're kind of hard-pressed to get a hit on the opponent in the first place. A change I won't be able to do a great side-by-side comparison for is a buff to all versions of Fatal Waltz, where the hitbox in the front and the back of it have been expanded so that it's less likely to whiff in the middle of the skill. Basically, just kind of getting rid of some finicky behaviors where the opponent might have fallen out early or had a gap that the Nier player might not have planned for. If there's something else going on with this change that a more experienced Nier player would like to point out in the chat, I say chat, I mean comments, for the rest of us, I think we'd all greatly appreciate it. The light and medium version of Misfortune now have longer hit stun recovery on the opponent. Previously, they had about 15 frames, which meant that you couldn't combo a Misfortune into her ominous turn. With the extra 7 frames of recovery, it's now possible for Nier to cancel a Misfortune and then combo it into an ominous turn. This opens up potential new combo routes for Nier. This could open up maybe some new Okizeme, things like that. It gives her another option that I feel like the Nier base is going to have to explore. Again, another nice buff. Previously, the medium version of Misfortune was negative on block. As this doesn't have armor and it was just a slow launcher, kind of really didn't serve a purpose in her pressure game sequences. It might just be a combo tool at times. Seems like Cygames and Arxis wanted to give this some utility. They reduced the amount of recovery Nier has after this move by about 10 frames. So instead of her being -5 on block, she's now plus 10. So now she's able to use a medium Misfortune, which is an unarmored option, by the way, in order to take her turn again and reset pressure. Honestly, it's kind of a nice little thing for her to get. The ultimate version of Misfortune also has a couple of buffs to it. Previously, the opponent was pretty much sent to full screen, and Nier was plus 41.
Great.
In this situation, it was hard for Nier to get any Okizeme with death. You couldn't even do an ultimate ominous turn into Fatal Waltz. The opponent could jab check this on reaction if they knew the matchup. The opponent is now much closer to Nier, and she has about 8 more frames of advantage to play with.
Great.
This does a lot for Nier's potential offensive game here, especially due to the close range. You're now able to set up a meaty Fatal Waltz exactly like that. That's just a very simple example that I could come up with. I'm sure more dedicated Nier players can come up with some real good pressure sequences off of that situation. The fact that Nier is able to use Ultimate Misfortune as a combo ender and maintain her offense, or be able to get her offense in gear after a successful reversal, is again another big buff to this character. One patch note I have not been able to parse together is a change to Ultimate Misfortune, where without death, which I guess means if death isn't on screen and she's doing this like to summon death, then the lock-on range has been reduced. This is a change I haven't been able to figure out, so if there's any Nier player who wants to clarify this in the comments below, I'd appreciate it. Now, despite all these buffs, there are a couple of nerfs to offset them in Nier's kit. We're going to take a look at Heavy Ominous Turn. Previously, this had quite a bit of travel distance. It covered about maybe half of the screen, so if Nier was anywhere within this range, she could send death onto you, and you pretty much had to block this lariat. The range has been severely reduced, as death now stops after the 4th active frame. So this option has become fairly stubby. Note this only applies to the heavy version of Ominous Turn. The light version and heavy go about the same distance. And the medium version goes farther than both, except it has the longer startup for it now. So this should reduce Nier's ability to use this special as a jump scare in neutral. Death Reverse Light version as a combo starter is now faster. Previously, it was 19 frame startup. This meant that you could not link into this as a combo off of her close medium. The opponent would be able to block. Now that it's 18 frame startup, this link is actually possible. So maybe this is a potential combo route that Nier players would want to mess with. I'm not entirely sure. There's definitely going to be cases where this is going to link in situations where it didn't used to, as I've demonstrated. It also means that it's probably going to be able to frame trap more options than it could have done so before. The one thing that I should note to you all is that there's been adjustments to its block stun and hit stun so that it's not going to give Nier any new frame advantage. It's still all the same frame data on block and on hit as it was before. It's just faster startup, so you're getting some new combos, maybe some new frame traps, but no new rewards because of those. Klagen Totentanz, Nier's Skybound art, now darkens the screen 2 frames earlier. I have a side-by-side comparison queued up for y'all here. All the other data is the same with it, so I'm not sure why the screen darkens earlier or what effect that serves, except to maybe just signal to the opponent that, hey, this is an invincible option sooner than it seemed. That's kind of the only theory I have. If anyone is able to clarify the purpose for this change, I'd appreciate it. Lastly, World of Death and Love, Nier's install super, has a couple of buffs. So previously, it would take quite a bit of your life in order to regenerate death, and the waiting period for you to actually get death back online was quite substantial. So it was definitely an improvement, but because of like the health costs as well as how long it took for death to recover, you really didn't see Nier players use this super at all. Let's take a look at its current behaviors. They reduce the amount of time it takes for the gauge to be regenerated, which also means that it takes Nier less health to regenerate that gauge as well. This actually looks like it might be a decent install super for Nier. I mean, you get full stock of death for like, you know, like a fifth, a sixth of your health bar. That's pretty good, and I imagine that there might be some situations where Nier players could actually opt to use this Skybound art in order to get themselves back into the game for that last kill that they need, or to just keep death up as long as they need to. The risk to this move is certainly more in line with the reward. I was always a fan of Nier's rework from a conceptual standpoint, making her have it to manage her Love's Redemption stocks by unsummoning death using her 5U and her JU in order to regenerate that important resource for her faster, as opposed to just the send death at them and maybe I run out of stocks before they die style of gameplay that she had in her release version. I liked the change overall. I liked how there was risk and reward to the puppet, that there was more difficulty in managing the puppet. However, in doing that, Cygames and Arc System Works definitely went a little hard on toning down the power of this character. Since this rework, while I think the character was more interesting conceptually, she wasn't as strong. In fact, she was too weak, and it's nice to see them come back and look at this version of the character and find ways to try and buff her. I think it's great that she can engage with the opponent in block strings in order to regenerate death to bring that option back faster. I think that it's great that she's able to regenerate more on hit. The changes to her Skybound art, the install, World of Death and Love, I think are really cool as well. She gets a couple of new combo options here. She gets better Okizeme off of a couple of situations as well. I think overall, like, this might be be a character that could be viable in the competitive scene. I mean, shoutouts to players like Inochi for running deep into the brackets at Combo Breaker with the character, but maybe we're going to see some players who drop the character return and revisit it to take her into tournament again. I've kind of missing this character. I don't miss the original version of Nier, but I've missed seeing what this version of Nier can do in Granblue, and maybe with these buffs, maybe someone will want to take the chance and show her what she's made of now.